At the beginning of the story, we see a sea. In that sea, our hero Paul is swimming. After swimming for a while, he floats in one spot. When Paul looks up at the sky, the clouds seem strange. There appears to be a huge hole in the sky, but Paul doesn't know what it is. Assuming it's some normal phenomenon, he swims back to shore. After this, Paul takes his car and goes to his workplace. Paul isn't an employee, he's the boss. He owns a workshop that repairs boats. After checking things there, he takes his car and returns home. At home, Paul has a wife and a daughter. His wife is talking on the phone with someone, and his daughter is sitting and studying. When the daughter sees her father, she runs to him, but Paul tells her to go back and study. Then Paul takes the groceries he bought and goes to the kitchen to cook. But when he turns on the tap, no water comes out. He needs to go to the basement and turn on the heater. Something seems wrong with the heater. So Paul says, "I'll go check the basement," and as he heads downstairs, his daughter says, "I'm coming too," and follows him. His wife asks him to bring a wine bottle from the basement, so Paul and his daughter go to the basement. The cat follows them, but Paul stops it because there's a fish downstairs, and the cat might catch and eat it. After locking the cat out, they go down. The daughter looks at the fish, while Paul checks the heater to figure out why the water isn't flowing. Then the daughter notices a spider right next to her father. When she asks him to kill it, Paul says, "It's a harmless creature, it doesn't bother us. In fact, it eats mosquitoes, so let it be." Paul is a kind man and doesn't kill the spider. Paul loves his daughter very much. They behave like good friends, and Paul affectionately plays with her. Later they come upstairs, cook dinner, and everyone eats together. After dinner, the mother and daughter start practicing dance. The daughter has a dance program at school. Then the daughter falls asleep. Afterwards, Paul and his wife dance together, eventually kiss each other, and go to the bedroom. That night passes. The next morning, when Paul wakes up and stands in front of the shower, he feels like he has become shorter. The distance between the shower head and his head has changed. But he doesn't take it seriously. When he picks up a shirt to wear, it feels too big. He tries changing shirts, but none fit properly. They all seem large. Thinking, "It's just my imagination," he puts on whichever shirt and leaves for work. His wife also has a job, so she goes to work too. After work that day, everyone gathers at home. During dinner, his daughter asks, "Dad, will you tell me a story today?" Paul says, "I'll tell you tomorrow." The daughter replies, "You said the same thing yesterday. You have to tell me today." But Paul is tired. "I'm not feeling well, sweetie. I'll tell you tomorrow," he says. The daughter gets upset and moves away. His wife says, "Just tell her one story. You already put her off yesterday." So Paul tells his daughter a story. After the story, he tells her to sleep and leaves the room. But the daughter gets down from the bed and lies on the floor. Paul comes back, picks her up, plays with her, and puts her back on the bed, like a normal father-daughter playtime. Then Paul lies down next to his wife. That night also passes. The next day, when Paul tries to dress for work, this time the shirts feel too small. Earlier they were big. This indicates a change. That is, his body seems to be either growing or shrinking. When he tells his wife about this, she says, "Maybe you haven't been eating well, so you've lost some weight. Let's go to the hospital and get checked." They go to the hospital for a checkup. They measure Paul's height. It's only 176 centimeters. When the doctor tells him this, Paul is shocked. Paul was originally 180 centimeters tall, but now he has lost 4 centimeters, 176 centimeters. When he tells the doctor this, the doctor says, "Height decreases with age, but it doesn't decrease by 4 centimeters, maybe only 1 or 2 centimeters. Paul is completely confused. Not understanding anything, he takes his car and leaves. His wife has gone to work, so he doesn't take her along. Paul goes straight to his workshop. There, he checks the boat repair work. He picks up a helmet and tries to put it on his head, but it doesn't fit properly. Normally, it should sit tight on his head, but now it doesn't fit right. Something is wrong with Paul, but he himself doesn't know what. That night, Paul returns home. He lies down next to his wife, but his mind isn't there. He keeps thinking, "Something is wrong with me." Meanwhile, we see Paul's daughter. She has a small dollhouse and is playing with it. Later, since Paul can't sleep, He comes outside and exercises. After a while, his wife comes there. She came looking for him because she didn't see him. She asks, "What's wrong? Is there any problem?" and tries to comfort him. Paul says, "I feel like my height is decreasing." His wife replies, "It's just your imagination. Come and lie down." She takes him back inside. The next morning, Paul goes to take a shower. He feels that his height has decreased even more. There's a clear difference in the distance between the shower head and his head. Suddenly, his wedding ring slips off his finger and falls to the floor. Normally, a ring wouldn't just slip off like that. Paul picks up the ring and goes straight to his wife. And here's the major twist. Paul is now shorter than his wife. Earlier, he was taller than her. His wife notices this too. They immediately go to the hospital. They run scans and tests. After examining the report, the doctor says, Paul is now only 164 centimeters tall. That means he has lost 16 centimeters from his original 180 centimeters, about the length of a ruler. Losing this much height is extremely abnormal. With age, people usually lose only 1 or 2 centimeters. The doctor is also seeing such a case for the first time and doesn't know what treatment to give. Still, Paul is admitted to the hospital. That night, while sleeping in the hospital, Paul has terrifying nightmares and wakes up in shock. He can't bear to stay there, so he leaves the hospital. He knows that if people find out about this rare condition, they will treat him like a lab experiment. He goes straight home. Many days pass. Paul doesn't go to the hospital. His wife is busy trying to sell the house. She says, "Let's leave this place and its memories behind and move somewhere else." Now Paul has become even smaller. He's smaller than a sofa and about the size of a kitten or a puppy. His wife comes to him and says, "Let's leave this place. That would be best. Or let's go to the hospital and get treatment." But Paul doesn't listen. He doesn't want to become a lab rat, subjected to experiments. He fears that scientists will turn him into an experiment subject. That's why Paul refuses to go to the hospital. This leads to an argument between Paul and his wife. She says, "If you don't go to the hospital and just stay like this, it won't be right." After arguing, she leaves. Before leaving, she picks up their pet cat, which was sitting there, and puts it outside, because given Paul's tiny size, the cat might harm him. After that, they stop letting the cat inside. More days pass. Paul stands inside his house. As he stands there, someone arrives outside. Paul hears someone talking. He feels like someone is entering the house, so he quickly looks in that direction. Paul's suspicion was correct. Several people have entered the house. They are potential buyers who came to see the house and buy it if they like it. Paul immediately runs and hides under the bed. The people who came walk near the bed where Paul is hiding. The sound of their footsteps terrifies Paul because, since he has become so small, even that slight noise is unbearable for him. His ears start hurting. Anyway, the people leave after a while. Later, his wife comes home. Paul starts getting angry at his wife. "This is the house I worked hard to build. You can't sell it," he says, protesting strongly. His wife gets angry in return and leaves in a huff. Watching all this, Paul's daughter stands there feeling very sad. Her own father has become smaller than a cat. What is this disease? Why is he shrinking like this? How can it be fixed? No one knows. More days pass. The daughter takes Paul and places him inside her dollhouse, which has a little doll in it as well. Paul tries to make his daughter happy by dancing with the doll. The daughter feels happy but also sad inside. Then the daughter screams loudly at Paul to play with him, like a monster roaring. That sound is unbearable for Paul. The ear pain becomes agonizing. He tells his daughter to stop. Only then does the daughter realize her father can't tolerate it, and what she did was wrong. Now Paul can't even tolerate small sounds in the house. He experiences ear pain and drowsiness. That night, Paul goes to where his wife is lying. His wife is on the bed, but she's not asleep. She sees Paul. She slowly reaches her hand toward Paul. What happens next is not shown. The next day, Paul is sitting on the floor, picking up needles and other things, preparing something. At that moment, the cat that was locked outside starts banging on the door. There's a small cat door at the bottom, which his wife had locked. But the cat keeps banging until it opens. The cat enters. Paul becomes terrified. he suddenly falls down in fear. The needles lying there pierce his stomach. He painfully removes them. When he takes off his shirt, he sees a large wound on his stomach. The cat comes to attack Paul. Paul picks up a large needle from the floor. For him, it's huge. He points it at the cat. But as the cat advances, Paul runs away. There's a small gap under the basement door. He somehow squeezes through to the other side. But the cat follows and reaches its paw in, trying to catch Paul. Paul gets scared, loses his balance, and falls from the step. He falls on top of some boxes below, so he isn't injured. The needle he was holding flies off and falls elsewhere. After some time, Paul regains consciousness. By then, his wife has come downstairs. She has found the blood-stained shirt Paul had taken off. She brings it and comes to the basement. Even though Paul is screaming loudly, his wife can't hear him. Because he's so small, his voice is very faint. The cat is watching all this from the top of the steps. Paul looks at the cat and gestures with his hand. The wife gets angry at the cat and chases it away. Then she also goes back upstairs. What the wife thinks, that the cat has killed Paul. She is left. Not knowing how to escape, Paul lies there inside the box. Since he feels cold, he covers himself with some plastic materials. But as night falls, it gets even colder, and he struggles to endure it. Inside that box, there were some pieces of cloth. There was also a nail, one that had been hammered into the box. Paul took the cloth, pierced it onto the nail to make a hole, and then wore it like a shirt. Now he felt some relief from the cold. He also found a small hole inside the box. Through that hole, he could get out. He made his way out through it. He still had the sewing needle with him, which he used as a weapon. When he came out, he noticed water dripping in small droplets from the heater pipe. Paul was very hungry and also thirsty. There was a small elevated platform there. Somehow, he climbed up and reached the heater. When the water fell in droplets, he caught them in his hand and drank, until his thirst was quenched. Then he removed his clothes and stood under the dripping water to bathe. As the water fell, the dust, dirt, and bloodstains on his body washed away. That night, after bathing, Paul wore whatever clothes he could find and lay down to sleep. The next morning, Paul woke up to some noise. It was the sound of his wife and daughter talking. They were preparing to leave the house. Because they believed Paul had died. To avoid painful memories of Paul, they had decided to leave the house. Paul hears this. He quickly goes to the bottom of the steps and tries to call out to them. But since he's so tiny, no matter how loudly he screams, they can't hear him. Anyway, Paul hears the sound of his wife and daughter driving away in the car. All of Paul's hopes are lost. There's no food to eat, no water to drink. He doesn't know how he'll survive. Sad and distressed, he wanders around the place. While wandering, he finds a piece of chalk. He takes that chalk and, with great difficulty, since the chalk is big and heavy for him, writes his name at the bottom of the steps. After this, Paul continues searching around. He finds a large piece of cheese, but the problem is, it's placed inside a mouse trap. There are some ants there, eating the cheese. Paul goes there and crushes the ants. Then he tries to get the cheese, but since it's in the trap, he picks up a heavy nail and throws it at the trap. The nail falls on the trap, but the trap doesn't snap. He picks up the nail again, brings it to the edge of the trap, and throws it once more. This time, the trap snaps shut with a loud clap, but Paul had moved back in fear, so he isn't hurt. Then he takes the cheese and eats it. He was very hungry. The cheese fills his stomach. At that moment, a large spider appears, the same kind he had refused to kill earlier. The spider comes to attack Paul. Paul takes his sewing needle and swings it at the spider, making noises to scare it away. The spider isn't very frightened, but it retreats as if saying, "I'll deal with you later." After this, Paul takes the nail and starts breaking apart a cardboard box that's lying there. What happens next remains to be seen. Inside that cardboard box, there were many useful items, but when Paul tried to break the cardboard, he couldn't. So he brought some water in a small lid. He wet the cardboard with the water and then tried poking it with the nail again. Since the paper became wet, its thickness reduced and it became easier to break through. That way, Paul managed to break it open. When he looked inside, there were many books and other items. Inside this box, he also found a matchbox, but he couldn't reach it. It was too far away, and he couldn't get through the gap between the books. Now Paul started moving things aside and cleaning up. If he stayed inside this box, he could sleep safely, protected from that spider's attacks. He could also hide there. For the next few days, Paul stayed there. He ate the cheese, drank water, and used whatever cloth he found to make some kind of clothing for himself. One day, while Paul was sitting there, his wife and daughter came home. They had come to pick up one of the daughter's dolls. Paul realized this. He quickly went to the bottom of the steps and shouted, "I'm here!" But his wife and daughter couldn't hear him. So Paul took a nail and another object that could make noise and struck them together to create a sound. Although Paul could hear it clearly, his wife and daughter couldn't hear it. They picked up the doll and left. Paul lost all hope. He was shrinking day by day. Perhaps he had already reached a size invisible to the human eye. Feeling very sad, Paul went to the wine that was stored there. He used the nail to break open the wine bottle's cap. Then he took some wine in a large container-like object and drank it. He got drunk. While sitting in that intoxicated state, he suddenly felt nauseous. He went to a corner and vomited. After vomiting, when he looked up, he saw that spider watching him. Paul got angry. There was a small doll next to him, a tiny doll about his size. In his drunken state, Paul said to the doll, "Don't be afraid. I'll settle things with that spider. It will never attack us again." Then he picked up the nail and went to attack the spider. The spider was on top of the fish tank. There was a small, ladder-like structure there. Paul climbed up using it, carrying the nail with him. When he reached the top, the spider was there. But as soon as the spider saw Paul, it moved away. Paul thought, "The spider is scared of me," and ran away. So he put down the nail and started laughing. But then, the spider that had moved away came back, this time to attack. Paul didn't have the nail in his hand. As he bent down to pick it up, the spider kept coming closer. Terrified, Paul fell into the fish tank below. There was a large goldfish inside. The fish could have eaten him, but it didn't. Paul overcame his fear and swam in the water. Later, he climbed back up. There was some fish food nearby. Paul took that food and fed it to the fish as a thank you, since the fish hadn't harmed him. Then, because he was hungry, he ate some of the pet food himself. After this, Paul took some water and a lid and picked up his sewing needle and went outside. Suddenly, the spider appeared in front of him again, ready to attack. Paul swung the sewing needle, but nothing worked. The spider kept coming at him again and again. Paul ran and hid somewhere, but the spider kept coming. Paul ran again. While running, he tripped and fell. When the spider came close, he crawled toward the wall. The spider tried to bite and harm him. Paul somehow managed to push it back. Finally, he found a small stick, like a twig, nearby. He picked it up and stabbed the spider's face and eyes multiple times. Blood splattered everywhere. The spider, frightened, fled from there.
That spider didn't do anything to Paul at that moment. Whether it would come back for revenge later, he didn't know. After this, Paul collected some plastic and paper and piled them up in one place. Then he took the matchbox from inside that box and placed it outside. He took one matchstick from it and tried to strike it, but he couldn't. He kept falling over. He tried again and finally managed to light it. He brought the lit match and set fire to the pile. It started burning. After the fire died down, Paul sat there in the ashes. His mind was full of thoughts about his wife and daughter. He couldn't even see them once. Even when they came, they didn't realize he was here because they thought he was dead. But that wasn't the case at all. Days passed. Paul started exercising and even began making his own clothes. He kept moving forward, doing one thing after another. One day, someone suddenly came down to the basement. But it wasn't his wife or daughter. It was a broker who had come to buy or sell the house. When the man came, Paul ran toward him shouting, "Save me!" But the man couldn't see him. Not only that, the sound of the man's shoes was unbearable for Paul, so he hid. But the noise made him dizzy and he fainted. After some time, he regained consciousness. When he woke up, the man was gone. Paul lost all hope of escape again. Days passed. One day, while Paul was in the basement, he noticed a small mesh-covered opening, like a tiny window.
Through that window, a mosquito came inside. The mosquito looked at Paul, flew around a bit, and then went back out through the mesh. At that moment, Paul felt a glimmer of hope. He could escape through that mesh too. Before leaving, he went to say goodbye to his little doll. But when he reached the doll, he was shocked. Earlier, he had been the same size as the doll, but now he was only the size of the doll's foot. He had become even smaller. He was stunned. But sitting there in shock wouldn't help. There was a table nearby. He started climbing up slowly, using the small cracks and gaps in the wood to hold on to. Since he was so tiny, he could grip the smallest textures. He climbed and climbed, taking a long time, and finally reached the top of a cupboard. Now came another challenge. He had to jump across from the cupboard to the other side. He went back, ran with full speed, and leaped across. Somehow, he flipped through the air and landed on the other side without falling. Now there was a wall ahead. He had to walk along the wall to reach the window. So he started walking. There was plenty of dust and small pebbles. He walked through them. He was almost at the window. But there was a problem. The spider had spun webs all around the window. If he touched any part of the web, the spider would know and come to attack him. Paul moved very carefully, trying not to touch the webs. But at one point, he accidentally brushed against one. The spider sensed it. It quickly came to Paul's location. But the spider couldn't see Paul because Paul had earlier stabbed out its eyes. Now, as the spider stood close to him, Paul was terrified. He was so scared that he wet his pants. He thought, "I'm going to die now. The spider will catch and eat me." Just then, something got caught in the web above, a mosquito or some other insect. Hearing that vibration, the spider quickly went up to catch and eat it. Paul was saved. He stood there in relief, grateful to be alive. He kept walking and finally reached the mesh. But when he tried to get out through the mesh, he couldn't. He got stuck in it. It was night. He slept right there near the mesh. The next morning, he woke up to some noise. When he looked, he saw a lot of ants coming toward him. The spider came and started catching and eating those ants. Seeing this, Paul got scared and quickly squeezed out through the mesh. Several ants also escaped along with him.
പുറത്തോട്ടിറങ്ങിയതും ആ ചിലന്തി അവനെ വന്ന് അങ്ങനെ നോക്കി നിൽക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. പക്ഷെ നെറ്റിനപ്പുറമാണ്. ആ ചിലന്തിക്ക് എന്തായാലും ഇനി അവനെ പിടിക്കാനായിട്ട് പറ്റത്തില്ല. കാരണം ചിലന്തി വലിപ്പമുള്ള ജീവി ആയതുകൊണ്ട് തന്നെ ആ നെറ്റ് വഴി പുറത്തോട്ട് വരാനായിട്ടൊന്നും സാധിക്കത്തില്ല. അത് ആ ബേസ്മെന്റിൽ തന്നെ ജീവിക്കുന്ന ഒരു ജീവിയാണ്. അങ്ങനെ അന്നത്തെ ദിവസം കടന്നു പോവാണ്. രാത്രി ആവുന്ന നേരത്ത് പോള് ആ പാടത്തൂടെയൊക്കെ അങ്ങനെ നടക്കാണ്. അവൻ ഒരുപാടധികം ചെറുതായതുകൊണ്ട് തന്നെ എത്ര നടന്നാലും ഭാര്യയും മോളെയൊന്നും കണ്ടുപിടിക്കാനായിട്ട് പറ്റത്തില്ല. ആ കാട്ടിൽ പലതരം ജീവികളുണ്ട്. അവൻ എന്തിന്റെ മുട്ട കാണുന്നുണ്ട്. ആ മുട്ട കണ്ട് അവനവന്റെ മുഖം പ്രതിബിംബമായിട്ട് ആ മുട്ടയിൽ കാണാനായിട്ട് പറ്റുന്നുണ്ട്. അതുകൊണ്ട് തന്നെ അത് നോക്കി നിൽക്കുമ്പോഴായിരിക്കും എന്തോ വലിയൊരു ജീവി അവന്റെ അടുത്തോട്ട് വരുന്നത്. നോക്കുമ്പോൾ മറ്റൊന്നുമല്ല, അത് വലിയൊരു ചിത്രശലഭമാണ്. അതിങ്ങനെ അവന്റെ മുകളിൽ പറന്ന് കളിച്ചിട്ട് അവിടെ നിന്ന് മാറിപ്പോകുന്നുണ്ട്. ഇത് കണ്ട് അതിന്റെ ഭംഗി ആസ്വദിച്ച് അവൻ അങ്ങനെ നിൽക്കുകയാണ്. അവൻ പൂമ്പാറ്റയെ കാട്ടിയും ഒരുപാടധികം ചെറുതായിട്ടുണ്ട്. നമ്മുടെ മുകളിലെ ഒരു ഹെലികോപ്റ്റർ വന്ന് പറന്നാൽ എങ്ങനെ ഇരിക്കും, അതുപോലായിരുന്നു ആ പൂമ്പാറ്റ വന്ന് അവന്റെ അടുത്ത് പറന്നപ്പോൾ അവന് തോന്നിയത്. അത്രയധികം ചെറുതായിട്ടുണ്ട് അവൻ. ഓരോ ദിവസം കഴിയുമ്പോഴും അവൻ ചെറുതായി ചെറുതായി വരികയാണ്. ചിലപ്പോൾ ഇനി ചെറുതായി ബാക്ടീരിയയേക്കാൾ ചെറുതാവാം, വൈറസിനേക്കാൾ ചെറുതാവാം. നമുക്കറിയില്ല എന്താ സംഭവിക്കാൻ പോകുന്നതെന്ന്. ഇപ്പൊ പോളിനാണെങ്കിൽ ആ ചിത്രശലഭത്തിനെ കണ്ടിട്ട് കണ്ണൊക്കെ നിറയുന്നുണ്ട്. അവൻ കണ്ണൊക്കെ നിറഞ്ഞ് അങ്ങനെ ഇരിക്കുകയാണ്. ഇതേ നേരം തന്നെ പോളിന്റെ മോളെ കാണിക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ അച്ഛനെ നഷ്ടപ്പെട്ട വേദനയില് ഒരു വീട്ടിന്റെ സൈഡിലായിട്ട് ഒരു ഊഞ്ഞാലും കെട്ടി അങ്ങനെ കിടപ്പുണ്ട്, അച്ഛനെയും പറ്റി ചിന്തിച്ചിട്ട്. അതുപോലെ തന്നെ വേറെ കുറെ ബന്ധുക്കളൊക്കെ ഉണ്ട്. ആ ഒരു വീട്ടിനുള്ളിലാണ്. പിന്നെ ബാക്കിയുള്ള ആൾക്കാരെല്ലാരും പോള് ഒളിച്ചോടി പോയെന്നാണ് വിചാരിച്ചിരിക്കുന്നത്. ഭാര്യയും മോളെയും കളഞ്ഞിട്ട് പോയെന്നാണ് വിചാരിച്ചിരിക്കുന്നത്. എല്ലാവർക്കും അങ്ങനെ അറിയത്തുള്ളൂ. ഭാര്യയും അങ്ങനെ തന്നെയാണ് പറഞ്ഞിരിക്കുന്നത്. പോൾ ഒരിക്കലും ചെറുതായി പോയി എന്നൊന്നും പറഞ്ഞിട്ടില്ല. എന്തായാലും മോളാണെങ്കിൽ ഇപ്പൊ ആകാശം നോക്കി കിടക്കുന്നതായിട്ട് കാണിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് ഈ മൂവി ഇവിടെ അവസാനിക്കുന്നു. പോളിന് എന്താ പറ്റിയെന്ന് നമുക്കറിയില്ല. അത് ഈ സിനിമയിൽ കാണിച്ചിട്ടില്ല. എന്തായാലും നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഇഷ്ടപ്പെട്ടിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ നിങ്ങൾ